Jeff here with the J&J podcast. We're talking nutrition and health. We have a special one for you today. I have Kelly Campbell, who is a health coach, and Leanne Ramirez, who is a mother of an autistic child. They're going to speak to us about how health and nutrition and diet has affected not only their lives, but their child's life. I hope it's as much as a blessing to you as it was to me. Thanks for sticking with us.
Here today with Carrie Campbell and Leanne Ramirez. And we're talking about things. This one's going to help you today. This one will help you because it sure has helped me. This is what I like to share with a lot of Christians out there and a lot of believers. It's here you go. Diet does affect your mental health. And I know it's not talked about when you say mental health. It's all spiritual. It's out of your spiritual problem. But it's the tie between diet and spiritual and your spirituality. And that's what I'm trying to hear. You guys have a couple, both of you have a story, and that's what I wanted to touch on today and try to pick into your, get into your stories. And I like, when it comes to diet, when we say mental health, I had some numbers, I did some, I have my own experiences, but I don't want to bring, so much going to those today as I want to try to help some of those out there. I like to do a podcast geared specifically towards diet, because whenever we say diet, mental health problems, they're not used in the same conversation as often as they should be. And that's what I'm trying to make the bridge, especially for Christians. If anybody has a reason or can understand it thoroughly, it's Christians, especially if they're going through it with emotional problems. And women, this is geared for you. Ladies, I should say, this is geared for you. And this is what I really wanted to put it together to help ladies. I know my wife had gotten some help from this, but I really wanted to get this. And God's brought this dynamic together and given me this opportunity. And that's sort of what I like to touch on. So without trying to come up with a fancy introduction to the whole thing, you have a story. You're here at Bible Baptist Church here in Fairbanks, and we had the privilege of doing a podcast with you and your husband the other day, and we would touch on a whole lot of issues. But you are a health coach.
Correct.
A health coach, and you guys have been through it. And you really need to go back and listen to that podcast that's out there with the Campbells and understand exactly what they've been through, because there's doctors, conventional medicine. We aren't here to bash conventional medicine. We're here to make that bridge between natural and conventional medicine. Is that a safe way to put it?
I use functional medicine.
Functional medicine. And so the connection between functional medicine. Well, let me start off with the fact that you and your husband trying to find the right doctor to get him squared away and stuff. And when you were looking for a doctor that helped him with his situation, were you trying some functional medicine aspect with them?
Yes. So it started out with my own problems. I have always had hives and asthma my whole life that I can remember. And I went to doctor after doctor, and the doctor never asked to do any kind of food allergy testing. And fast forward to I have my second child, and I knew something was not right with me. So I started on a quest, and I found out that I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroid. So I was having some thyroid issues. And then my whole life I've had intestinal issues, and I didn't know what was wrong. So once I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, I started doing a lot of research, because the doctor just said, you have Hashimoto's, and then said, bye. And I didn't, it was like, I didn't know what to do with that. They didn't give me any kind of, any hope. I just had a diagnosis of an autoimmune disease. So I started my quest there looking, and then he was injured not long after that. And I knew that there was an answer, because I believe with all of my heart that the Lord was going to heal my husband. But I just knew it wasn't going to come through conventional medicine, because none of them gave him any hope. They just said, you're going to have this for the rest of your life. You're going to have to be on pain meds the rest of your life. You're going to end up in a wheelchair probably by the time you're 50, and it's probably going to take your life. And that wasn't good enough for me, because I know God is the healer, and he made our bodies to heal themselves. So when he was sick, I thought I was going to have to go back to work, and I didn't want to have an outside job because he was sick and I had the baby to take care of. So I decided I would enroll in nutrition school. So I did, and that opened up a lot of possibilities for me. I knew that I had the best of the best doctors and a lot of functional medicine doctors that I learned from, and it was very eye-opening. So I started doing more research. At any time in our house, you could see a stack of books. I was constantly on the internet. I literally logged thousands of hours studying, trying to find answers for not only my own problems, but for his as well.
So when it comes to your problems, this is where I'm about to get in trouble.
Okay.
Like, so how old are you?
Oh, 58.
58.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 54.
That's a rough way to start asking. I'm 57. But the reason I ask that question is because this usually shows up post-menopause, going through all. The only reason I'm saying that is because I think my wife was diagnosed with Graves' disease when she was younger, and she had a thyroid newt and stuff. And I don't know if you go with that route. She would go that route if she knowing what she knows now. And she deals with that, and she deals with having to change her diet and hormonal replacement and things like that, even at this date. And it really reared its ugly head when she went through menopause, and she's dealing with it even to this day. And that's where I'm trying to get some help for these, for ladies who are trying to get on top of this stuff. And it's hard because when we say going to conventional medicine, it's a healthy balance. What did you find that actually in your story to continue on?
Sure. So my son, when he was 2, I noticed that he didn't look healthy, and this was my youngest son, and his skin was really opaque, really white. You could see his veins through his skin and dark circles under his eyes, and he was constantly having a stomach ache. So I took him to, I was going to a naturopath doctor at that time, and she said, Kelly, it's really traumatic to do allergy testing on a baby. So she said, let's wait till he's 3 and we'll test him again, or we'll have him tested for the first time. So I said, okay. So we waited till he was 3, and immediately his test came back that he had celiac. And she said, Kelly, with all the problems that you're having, let's test you because it is familial and you can have it from generations. So I did the testing and I came back that I had celiac as well. So as soon as I took gluten out of my diet, it was a huge difference. Even I didn't feel as antsy anymore.
For your son or for you?
I took gluten out for both of us.
Right.
Because we both have celiac.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. That's okay. So then I noticed that I felt so much better after I took the gluten out. But then when I took dairy out as well because it causes inflammation and mucus buildup. But when I took dairy out of my diet, my hives went away, the asthma went away, and I was mad because I thought, here I am, 40 years old, and no doctor has ever told me that my asthma was caused from dairy and my hives were caused from dairy. So I suffered for 40 years.
Come on.
And I was mad because I thought, why didn't someone tell me about this before?
I think before we go in, it's tough because we go and present something. We think it's a norm, I should say, not to bash conventional doctors. And if anybody has a whole story, it's your family with going to find a doctor to help on something specific. And there's nothing wrong. Let me say there's nothing wrong in looking for a doctor. But you know your body better than he or she does. And if you're having troubles, then sometimes we don't even realize we're having troubles.
Right.
And so if you go ahead and continue on, so you took the gluten out of your life and out of your diet, I should say, is that, boy, I want to run ahead in about 20 different directions because as soon as you say, hey, I'm gluten-free, everybody out there like, no way. They don't understand what you're saying. Everybody's afraid of trying to make that transition. Was it difficult?
It was incredibly difficult. I cried for 2 weeks. But you have to remember way back then.
It's simple. It's simple.
No, that was way back when they didn't have gluten-free options. It was very rare for you to find a gluten-free product. So, because that was 15 plus years ago. And since then, it's become so much easier. But my son, he was 3 when he went gluten free, but he remembers the pain and he does not want to eat gluten. He remembers
He's growing up without it.
he's
pretty
grown up
much.
without it, so it's no big deal for him. And through the years, it gets easier, and I don't want it. I will not eat gluten because I remember
The
how I feel
desire starts
too.
going away. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it just gluten you have eliminated from your diet, or is it other things?
So I don't eat gluten. I don't rarely eat dairy, and I don't eat a lot of sugar because those things help me to. I don't feel well when I eat them.
Your people are cheeseaholics.
Oh
I'm one of them, and it's
Yeah.
tough. It's
Yeah.
tough.
They say cheddar cheese is the most addictive food product there is.
Sure, I'll go with that.
It acts like cocaine.
Miss Ramirez, thank you for being here today. And I know you have a story specifically, and everybody is questioning diet to physical problems. And you have a story because I know you have an adopted
Son and daughter.
son and daughter, and you said they had challenges with they were autistic,
Yes.
and
We got them when they were 3 and 4. They came to stay with us. Well, almost 3 and almost 4. And their communication was so limited. The only thing they really did when they wanted something was just scream. And so I told my kids, don't ever give them anything if they're screaming because we're not encouraging this. But so way back before that, when I had my first son, he went to visit his grandma once and kind of, did grandma things like ate ice cream every night and I
Of
don't know
course.
what else. And when he came home, I was like, oh my, what has happened to you? What am I going to do with you? And I took him to a chiropractic naturopathic doctor that we had. And through a series of things, he told me to take him off of gluten and eventually off of dairy. And when I took him off of gluten, his adrenals still weren't coming up and, working right. But then when I took him off of the dairy, within 2 weeks, they were up. And I was like, wow, we could have tried that a while ago.
let's back up a second here. you now the problem is that stuff rolls off your tongue so fluently because you deal with it, you live with it. The problem is people listening to this. I know your family. The problem that I have with the interview is I know too much.
Right.
And your family, you've had. Are you gluten free yourself?
Yes.
And what else, dietary wise?
Well,
and why have you just decided to gluten free?
Well, so way back, way back, I kind of already started going, okay, gluten isn't good. There's got to be other options.
Why?
Because of my son, who like his adrenals just they weren't working.
How about you personally?
And so me personally, I really felt like that I could eat anything and never have a problem. I just felt like there was no problem. But when my daughter was about 20, she was diagnosed with RA. And I said, you are way too young to have RA. So we talked to this nutritional doctor and he gave us a book to read. And she started following just gluten-free, dairy-free, and sugar-free. And then she told me, wow, when I'm going up and down the stairs, I don't have that pain. I don't hurt all the time anymore. And I thought, that's really interesting because I thought I have pain all the time. My back always hurts. I figure it's getting older and you get up and you're kind of like, oh, stiff
Sure.
and sore.
When you say RA, you mean rheumatoid arthritis, right?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
No, that's good.
No. And so I decided, well, I'm going to try this diet. And so I started trying it and I was amazed how the pain went away, how I didn't feel stiff anymore when I stood up. And then over a period of years, I decided to go. I felt like I was still missing something I needed. And so then I went on the AIP diet, which is the it's autoimmune protocol. And I tell you what, I feel better every year I feel better. I feel better than I did when I was 40. And I think that's significant.
As you get older, you're supposed to, aches and pains are natural. That's what you're told.
Right. But it's not.
It's not supposed to be.
No, it's not. And when I found out, because I had lived with the pain for so many years, and kind of like her, when I found out I didn't have to, I was like, wow, this is so amazing. And so, talking about cheese, I love cheese, right? So one time we were at a restaurant and I ordered a salad. Well, I didn't know they were going to put cheese on it. But so I thought, well, I'll just kind of try to not eat too much of the cheese. And the next day I hurt so bad, I almost cried. And then I thought, now, wait a minute. I used to feel like this every day and it's going to go away so I can make it through this, But it just totally took away my craving for cheese. I don't even want cheese because that pain just made me go, okay.
Something correlated to it.
Yeah.
If we take a step back, your adopted son who has autism, he was diagnosed by a doctor with autism.
Well, I took him to a doctor to have him diagnosed because he wasn't communicating like at all.
Doctor.
Right. And he was specifically an autistic doctor who had done it for years. But in between the time you make the appointment and the time that we went, he started communicating a little bit because he wouldn't even shake his head yes or no.
Really?
And he was 4 years old. But by the time we went, we had gotten him to the point where he would communicate a little bit, and we had him on a dairy-free and a gluten-free diet, and he was going to preschool. So I even had to go in and say to the preschool, look, gluten-free, dairy-free. And they were really good. They worked with me. I actually had to go through the doctor and whatever,
Right.
but my doctor signed off on it so that they would pass it off at school too. And so then when we took him down to have testing, the doctor said, he has all the symptoms of autism. He says, but he's getting so much better. He said, I'm not going to diagnose him right now. You give him a couple of years, you give him a few years, and then we'll see where he's at. And he also said that sometimes there's traumatic things in a person's life, trauma, that a trauma-based, I can't remember what it's called, but that kind of mirrors autism. And so he said, so we're just going to wait. And so, but now he's tested out of special ed.
He's not in special ed anymore.
No.
So you changed the diet up.
Mm-hmm.
How long after you took gluten out, took the dairy out, how long after that did he start to respond to that?
Well, it was always like a continuous, like you see little small things. It's not like one day, wow, everything is all better, but just like a continuous like progression in a good direction.
But
within
a year later,
within a month, I feel like you could already
see the difference.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just a behavioral thing. I mean, like you can just see like my daughter, when she goes and eats things she's not supposed to, I'm like, what have you been eating? Because it's just a behavioral thing. You can just see it.
And affecting behavioral situations? I mean, come on.
It's crazy.
Just whoop them up. They'll be fine.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I did grow up in that day and age. And my dad...
That's the problem. We're all Gen X's here.
Right. And my dad grew up in that time. He's like, well, you just spank them. There's no such thing as ADHD. You just spank them and make them behave. And I kind of thought that. But as I got older... I was like, okay, there's a whole nutritional side to this too.
Hang on. You just went from autistic to ADHD.
Well,
you just let that flow right off the tongue like that.
It's all kind of there.
Because those are the things that we get thrown out that are,
the big ones.
The labels.
Right.
We take behavioral situations and we throw ADHD after it, which is it's not wrong, but it's like, okay, they have that, and they want conventional medicine wants to put them on a medicine. And I mean, I started out by saying the problem that we have is that there's 7 million professing Christians that say that they're depressed, and you have depression and diet. How do you tying depression and diet? If you tell somebody's battling with depression that a majority of it's because of dietary situations, they start having a problem, because now you said that you notice a change in behavior. with the diet aspect. So you have to start tying these things together.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, no, I don't believe that. I said that for the longest time. Well, our thoughts are actually directed through our stomachs. And there's a true, and that's the tie that I'm trying to connect here. You know, we look at the children, we look at ladies that have to deal with this situation, and hormonal differences, imbalances, and everything. But it generally starts. We have to start somewhere, and it usually starts with the diet. Is always a good place to start. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
You guys see that? Am I
Oh,
right in
yes.
saying that? Because now you said ADHD. Is any of your adopted children diagnosed with the ADHD?
I didn't. I'm one of those people who doesn't like diagnosis. I kind of like think, why
wait a minute,
label
you mean
them with this
there's-
all their life?
Agreed.
There-
Agreed.
There's a problem. It's in front of me. You know, it's a problem. We gotta go get somehow. For some reason, we need to put a label on that.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, you know, I don't have a problem with putting a label on it as much as you have a problem. You have common sense. You can say that as a individual trying to find the right doctor. My wife went and found. She went to a doctor. She's been dealing with this Graves' disease for years. She had it nuked when she was a young lady, and she's dealing with menopause and going through that. And she goes, you're in Fairbanks, Alaska, up here, and she ends up finding a doctor. And she goes there and looks at her chart, and without even talking to her, says, "Oh, you have Hashimoto's." And she's like, obviously, they do not know what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't go back to that doctor. And she found another doctor who was
Nutritionalist.
I'm sorry. She found another doctor that was functional medicine,
Mm-hmm.
and he got her straightened out with the hormones. So, I mean, she was so bad she wasn't even producing anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, zero. I mean, it's pretty bad when the doctor looks and says, "I've never seen anything this bad." And he's been at it for 20 years. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
But as soon as he got her straightened out within 3 to 6 months, I could honestly attest I got my wife back. It becomes that bad. And you wonder how many marriages get wrecked over diet.
Right.
And it's like, yes, it's true. And that's why we're trying to put this together. But you said diet change within your autistic child and ADHD, and it made a difference, not overnight, but it makes a difference on the long haul.
Yes, it does.
Okay, just to scrape on the surface here, if you help me with that, because I know some of this now. We have a hard time. You want to eat right. In Fairbanks, Alaska. You want to eat right. You know, get some organic vegetables. Good luck. It's going to be 48 below pretty soon here in the next couple of days. And it's like, good luck with just naturally trying to find anything in the stores. Lower 48, you can find some stuff. You can get some organic. That's all I do is eat organic. And you try to find those organic vegetables. But as soon as you say gluten free, I mean, you and I were speaking the other day. What is it in the flour in the U.S. that
The glyphosate
the glyphosate
that they spray to keep the weeds down to higher yield.
So it's a weed killer that's natural, that's sprayed on, that's accepted. They don't allow that over in European countries,
Correct.
and that's why in dealing with missionaries, and talking to them in other countries and what they're up against, they don't have this dietary problems. You don't see the Crohn's and the autoimmune diseases and things so much in your European or your Asian countries. And I know for myself, I bought some flour out of Europe and cooked with that. It's a different bird. It's a different bird. You feel it different. Your digestion's different. It just works a lot different. But some of these things being said, is I'm trying to make the bridge, and that's why I asked Stephen to help me out with that. Trying to make the bridge between the diet and spiritual battles that we deal with. I don't necessarily want to dump the onus on you guys to be the spiritual coach as much as ask you this: dietary and things that you eat affect your thoughts. Am
Very
I
true.
correct in all that?
Very
Yes.
true.
we talk about brain fog and things like that, and it becomes real easy with the American diet to head down that path and become with the brain fog and just feeling I'm tired, I'm done with all this, and get that sluggish thing and affecting your thought life. And am I correct in saying that?
Yes.
Do we have any instances that we would like to share?
I have helped numerous people that had dietary food allergies. They had a lot of weight to lose, and through making dietary changes, their whole life changed. They weren't depressed. They were excited. They could get up. They could move. And it started with food.
Increase the quality of life.
Absolutely.
Anything?
Well, cancer is an autoimmune disorder, and my mom had cancer, and she had been in a lot of pain for a lot of years. And just about 6 months before we found out she had cancer, we put her on the autoimmune protocol diet, and her pain went away. Now, she still had the cancer, which we figured out later and everything. But that in of itself was significant, that the pain was gone. And as we kept walking down that road and working through things, she was 70 something. And she was kind of like, oh, well, I'm not going to live much longer anyway, so it doesn't matter and stuff like that. But once we got her on a good diet and started working on the treatments and stuff like that, she is chipper and happy and just loves life again, which is really exciting to see.
Wow. Amen.
Mm-hmm.
So people with cancer, I mean, sugars are always the biggie that I see. Your ground or processed sugars are always a biggie. And people don't realize what that affects and how that affects the body. And sugar just feeds that cancer.
It's very inflammatory.
Very. Yeah. I hate so much sugar, higher glucose in my system and stuff. I just get stiff. You don't realize that. And it's not natural to have aches and pains as you get older. The world might tell you that it's natural, but it's not. It's not. We're not supposed to be in pain. We were never meant to be in pain like that. And that, stepping back, I ran right over top of it. How hard it is, dietary wise, to shop and to buy and to cook and to process any food that's good for you. Challenges that you run up against.
I do not buy a lot of gluten-free products because they're still processed. I typically make everything from scratch, and we really just eat protein, vegetables, fruits, that kind of thing. And then we don't use a lot of box products or packaged products.
I save you for last because I know I pick your brain for recipes all the time because
Right.
she does good.
Well, with the kids as they were growing up and everything, like I am good with fruits and vegetables and stuff, but it is, like you said, hard here in Alaska. And I couldn't afford really to buy the gluten-free stuff. Now, when I first started doing it, it just wasn't even available. But then one of the problems with the gluten-free stuff is that most of it, well, at least some of it, because, everybody gets on the bandwagon and tries to sell, Fruit Loops that are sugar-free or gluten-free, or whatever. And so it's so expensive though. And it has usually high amounts of sugar in it because they kind of replace everything with sugar so that it tastes really good. So I have just baked a lot myself. And we do eat a lot of vegetables and fruit and stuff like that. But there are so many good recipes for gluten-free stuff. It is just amazing. I kind of just take recipes and convert them myself because I've done it
I do too.
a long time. Yeah. But you can make so much really good stuff. It's the only thing that's hard is if you're going to go out to eat because you can't, but if you're
Right.
at home, you can make so much good stuff. You don't really suffer, so to speak, because you can't have good stuff to eat. You just have to learn how to make it.
Agreed.
this podcast is kind of drifted into foods and how to cook and all that, but the individual sitting out there is the one I'm worried about, concerned with, who's it's tough when the world has gotten on top of you, and the diet in America, our processed foods and what we do, and how much McDonald's fast food's part of our lives, and boy, you can go on and on about you end up getting to a point to where it's just hopeless, and it's hard to make that, just shift that gear. And I'm trying to encourage the individuals. All the moves that you guys have made, how long ago did you switch to gluten-free and start heading down that road?
Well, I started like 30 years ago.
Fine. Yourself?
Over 15.
Is it worth it?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Is it hard to make that shift?
Just at the beginning. Then it just becomes a way of life.
I would agree. There's, you sometimes have to shop different places. Like we get a lot of stuff from Azure Standard up here. We can order from Azure Standard. You can order from Holy Living. You just have to look for different things at the store. You can't just do the sales, I'll buy whatever's on sale,
Right.
But
More
but you just have to look for different things.
can be more expensive.
It can be.
If you're buying the gluten-free processed product, it will definitely cost more. But if you stay with proteins and fruits and vegetables, I think it's typical.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
I think what I've seen with it is you can go to the extreme. And I mean, when you say fruits and vegetables, organic, everything's organic these days.
It is, but where we live, there's not a lot of organic. We live right in the middle of cornfields where everything is sprayed.
Right.
And we don't, and we live kind of in the country, so we have to drive a significant way to be able to get organic products.
That, and I mean, when you say proteins, you're speaking a lot about
Grass-fed,
grass-fed, grass-finished.
right?
I mean, you can go right off the rails on this thing.
We buy half of a cow.
So do we.
Yeah.
And we, of course, here in Alaska, it's the moose and the caribou and whatever natural stuff you can get.
Right.
And so I eat a lot of that. But, is it expensive? Yeah, let me tell you what it costs to go get that moose this year. But the cows are, it's not that far off.
No, we probably pay $5 a pound.
Chicken stuff. Chicken stuff. Good fish is hard to come by. I mean, we have a ton of fish here.
We buy our fish from Alaska and have it shipped in.
But
We have a freezer full.
I mean, there's different ways of doing this thing. But go ahead.
No, we have a garden.
You have a garden? It's hard to do a garden in Alaska.
I'm a huge canner. I do a lot of
Really?
canning.
You do a lot of canning and stuff like that. Now you have mothers, women, young adults, everybody looking at this, and Gen Xers like us saying, "I just can't do that. I'm so far on the line. It ain't worth doing." And I think that's allow me to say, "You're 3 days away. You're 3 days away from your life changing." I mean, you're 3 hours, 3 days, 3 months, 3 years. It's unbelievable. 30 days for me. I mean, 30 days, lose X amount of pounds. And it's not, for me, I equate it to weight loss, but I didn't go after it for weight loss. I went after it so I feel better. And that's, the Bible says we wrestle not against flesh and blood. And we always think that that's the person across from us. But a lot of times it's yourself. And we wrestle a lot with ourselves. And we shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
And God allows us and strengthens us to be able to overcome that. But you're so close. And it's right. I always try to encourage everybody one thing. Start with one thing. You say, hey, I want to get this I need to get this out of my life. One thing, grab one. Start somewhere. You got to start somewhere. Start somewhere. Stephen, am I correct in assuming that?
Yeah, no, I'd
He
agree.
keeps giving me
I
that
was-
high sign.
Yeah,
Go
no,
on. Oh, here he goes.
I was just gonna pop in. I had a thought, but so I know I've heard my mom talk about this before, because starting out a family, a young person, and just got married a few years ago. But food's expensive, and especially if you're going to eat healthy. And so part of the trade-off that I have in my mind that I've gotten from my mom is, you can either spend a little bit more now for healthier food, or you can have a lot of very expensive medical issues later in life that you're going to be dealing with.
Oh, I got insurance.
So
That's
true.
fine.
Yeah,
I've
there you
got
go.
insurance.
No.
That's a true statement. As a side note to some of that, to try to wind this down and wrap it up, but a side note to that is I do all my own cooking, and I should say a majority of it. And I'll cook for myself, and I'm on crazy regiment where I eat 7 o'clock in the morning and no later than 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I try to fast for, it's just it's tough for me because I've been saved for 30 years now and born again believer, and I come out of New Age realms, and it was always dietary and New Age realms, and because I was a young kid then, I didn't really care that much about that, but I avoided it for so long to where I do it now. I just stick to that regimen just to feel better, keep the spiritual aspect, because you find that with yoga and other things there's always that other side trying to creep in there. But switching that diet and stuff, I did all my own cooking this week, and I'll cook all my stuff up ahead of time, and I'll have it all prepared in glass containers for myself and all ready to go. I cook too much. That's the problem, is I made too much. Is your body doesn't require as much as we shovel into it, especially if you're eating all that, the gluten and if you're eating all the stuff with the sugars and everything, your body's craving that stuff, and you're going to eat more and more. So you sit there and look at it and say, I can't do this. How am I supposed to do this? It's so expensive. You can come up with 900 different excuses, but the reality is, God leads us through these things, and a man devises in his heart his ways, but the Lord directs his steps. And I don't go through as much food as I've cooked enough for 2 weeks in the reality of it, because I just don't, my body doesn't require that stuff at this point. I encourage anybody, just start somewhere. Start with one thing. And we did touch in a podcast if they wanted to get a hold of you.
It's treasuretrialsministries.com.
treasuretrialsministry.com. And Mr. Ramirez, I'd let everybody go through your son.
Okay.
We'll just feed it right through
Sounds
him.
good.
And you can call Bible Baptist Church here in Fairbanks and get a hold of Stephen Ramirez, and he'll be the filter.
There you go.
But it is doable, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It is.
It's worthwhile. We stated that before. It is
Absolutely.
worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
I thank you very much for both of you guys. And there's a whole lot more we could discuss, but I just want to try to be an encouragement to those out there now. It can be done.
Absolutely.
Do it. It's worth it. Thanks, ladies.